First stop of the long haul. Got a third of the trip done. We got a long way to go. 3.5 hours. We got another 12.5 tomorrow. So, stopping in Thornburg, Virginia. Yay! Good morning. This is a long trip. We did about a third of the trip last night. We got a long way to go. Whew. Hopefully I got the energy. I didn't sleep good last night. But nonetheless, wake up early. Gotta go. Quick breakfast. Yeah. Lunch break. Typical.
Daddy eats some of that too.
We made it finally to our hotel in the famous place for witches, Salem, New Hampshire. Sorry, wrong Salem. We'll visit that tomorrow. But we're sailing in Salem, New Hampshire tonight. Interesting, huh? So here's the witch's house in Salem. Actually, one of the judge's houses, but witch's house in Salem. Hey, Chloe.
What?
Hi.
Hi.
The First Church of Salem. So this is the Ropes Mansion. This is Allison's house from Hocus Pocus 1.
Everybody else thought this was freezing, and they're like, no, it's fine.
We went straight for rocks, did we? Hey, Fred. How's that fried dough?
How is it different from
Funnel cake.
funnel cake?
Well, funnel cake is like
You can tear them.
more cracks and like shapes, and this fried dough is all together.
Just one flat dough.
Yep.
But the problem is
Huh?
about witches? Yes. So in order to do that, we have to go back in time to 1692, our most famous year. And we're famous for something that happened that's not good. It's bad, all right? And who was behind this crazy story but the Puritans, the same people who started this church. And the number one thing for the Puritans was church. It was religion. It was following all the rules of their church, okay? When they came over here from England, they came over to start a church, and this is the church that they started. This church was started in 1629. If you just want to turn your head and look at that sign over there, some people with super awesome eyesight can see that it says founded in 1629. Okay, so this is in fact the first Christian church in Salem. I want to say something about this building that looks like a castle. Can we agree that it's castle-y looking? The building is from 1836. So I don't want you to think that the Puritans from the 1600s built this granite building. The Puritans actually built everything out of wood. So right away we know this isn't from the 1600s. However, many of us can see a little slice of the witch house, what we call the witch house. Over here, that black house, it kind of looks triangular. It's the witch house. That one's from the 1600s. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold in our minds the first church in Salem and the witch house as we take off and we go into the garden next door. So our plan is this. We're leaving, we're going to go down the path, and we're going to wind up in the garden next door, where I'm going to start to tell you the story of how the witch trials began. Okay? All the time. In fact, every time a grown-up told you to do something, you better go do it without asking questions, without saying, oh, I'll do it later, it's not my turn. No talking back, right, you guys? So all kiddos are absolutely perfect in their behavior. In February of 1692, something very, very weird happened. Two girls, one of them was age 9. Is anybody age 9? Absolutely wonderful. I love it. Great. Is anybody close to age 12, or we're just going to stick? How old are you? 10. I'll take 10. 10's fine. Maybe that's as close to 12 as we're going to get. A kiddo age 9 and a kiddo age 12. They started rolling around on the ground, screaming, yelling, kicking their feet up in the air, barking like dogs, and just acting like complete maniacs at a time when you kiddos are supposed to be perfect. So the doctor was called, and they said, "Doctor, what is wrong with the children?" And the doctor examined the kids and he said, "Nothing is physically wrong with these children, but they are bewitched. A witch is making them behave this way. A witch is controlling our precious children's behavior." So the next stop is to ask you kiddos, who is the witch? Who is bewitching you? Who's doing this to you? And so, because all of this is imagination, because back in 1692, the witches that they believed in weren't even real. So it's hard to figure out who's a witch and who's not a witch when this stuff isn't even real. But we're going to do an experiment. Are you in, kids? Let's do it. Back in 1692, the way that they thought about witches, that was all imagination. Okay? So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little experiment. I want you kiddos to pretend to help me find witches. Are you ready? Okay. We're going to pick just one random thing. Hello, welcome back. Guess what we're going to do?
We surprise you again.
We're going to pretend to figure out who's a witch and who's not a witch. But this is just pretend. Are you ready? It's just an experiment. So, I'm looking at the grown-ups. Let me see. Let's see. Okay, kids, here's what we're going to do. We're going to point at any grown-up who has sunglasses on or sunglasses on their head. Get them, kids. Get them. Really point at those witches. Get all the witches in the booth, you guys. Get them all. You can even use two hands like this. All right. Well done, my friends. Hands down, we found the imaginary fake witches, right? Now, that was just pretend. We know the people in our group aren't really evil, terrible witches from the 1600s, right? Right? Is that true? Okay. Anyway, we know that. We did an experiment to show you how random it was to try and ask kids, like, where are the witches? It was totally random. Because the kids are just going to go into their imagination. They're just going to find some little thing about somebody and say, I think that person is probably a witch. I don't want anybody on my tour walking away from my tour saying, oh yeah, in 1692 they just pointed out people with sunglasses and those were the witches. That's not true. We just did this just to show You could pick anything. We'll just pick any characteristic and we'll just decide that person is a witch. Because back in 1692, they were doing what we would call shooting in the dark. They just made it up, okay? And then if they got afraid of somebody, maybe they imagined that person was a witch, okay? So, also in 1692, it wasn't fun. We had a little fun pointing at people, but in 1692 it was very, very serious. As a matter of fact, the punishment for witchcraft, if you were found to be a witch, was death, okay? If you were if you were accused of witchcraft, soon you were brought in front of a judge, right? Witch trials, so there had to be a judge. And one of the judges was named Jonathan Corwin. He lived at that house. If you use your x-ray, the house, but then when the party starts, they're on a set, which they built. Everything in Hocus Pocus 1 in Salem is exterior only. So don't go looking inside for Hocus Pocus. It's all outside. So my mom was a tour guide in this house, and she said that people used to come and visit this house, and they were eager to see Allison's house. They walked in the door, and they went, oh, and they were devastated. It's a really nice mansion inside, but it's not ours. Okay, my friends? We're going to do something scary. We need the aliens. Get those aliens up. Aliens up. Okay, aliens, please go to the library, check out a book. Fantastic. Awesome. Okay, I love that. Why I teach grade 6. So anyway, I can't. All right. So anyway, school library, public library, and this one, the third kind, is a private library. Ooh, what does a private library even mean? A private library means that every year, if you want to belong to this library, you have to pay a fee, like dues. It's a membership library, so you're either a member or you're not a member. Back in 1760, does everybody see the sign that says 1760? Well done, you guys. Back in 1760, it cost $11. $11 to join the library. Okay, I think I could do that. But in 1760, that was over $1,000 because that's how the money has changed over time. So it was really, really expensive. There was a guy who wanted to join the Athenaeum so badly, but he didn't have enough money. He wasn't a famous author yet, and his name is Nathaniel Hawthorne. A grown-ups who's heard of our dear friend Nathaniel Hawthorne. Anyone who has ever read The House of the Seven Gables? Triple bonus points for anyone who's gotten through this one. Scarlet Letter? Anyone? Scarlet Letter? That's where I get a lot of, the Scarlet Letter. Now, kiddos, you just caught me, so I'm sitting, so I better get up. You just caught me talking to you about, so this is your tour. Now, the reason I do that is because Nathaniel Hawthorne, author from the way back, he is still being assigned in schools. So if you sign up for an American literature course, and I hope you do, Nathaniel Hawthorne is considered one of the top 10 authors in all of America, and they still assign Hawthorne books in school. So we might be coming at you. So don't fall asleep on me yet. Have you been to the House of the Seven Gables? Anyone planning on it? It's great if you want to add that to your itinerary. This is one of Salem's house museums. Back when Nathaniel Hawthorne was here, by the way, do I have a July birthday? Any kiddos born in July? You're born in July? What day in July? 21st. Another July. Anthony born in 11. Nathaniel Hawthorne was born on the 4th of July in 1804. So when he was here in Salem, his cousin lived in this house. So he used to go in and visit his cousin, as you do. But now this house has become a museum. It became super famous because Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote a book about it. He went into the house, he said, wow, this is a really creepy house. And he wrote an entire fiction book about it. Now, Nathaniel Hawthorne believed in ghosts. And this isn't a ghost story about the Salem Athenaeum, but it's a ghost story about the Boston Athenaeum. One fine evening, Nathaniel Hawthorne was sitting in the Boston Athenaeum reading a book by candlelight, and he looked up and he saw one of his friends walk by. Now, kiddos, eyes on me. Eyes on me. Because this is how the friend walked by. You ready? He went like this. Everybody see me? The friend went like this. And he looked really sad and really weird. He had this weird look on his face. And so Hawthorne looked up to say hello, but his friend actually vanished right before his eyes. Hawthorne didn't know what just happened. So when he was leaving the Boston Athenaeum, he said to one of the librarians, I saw Reverend Harris upstairs. He looked really weird, and it seemed like he disappeared. And the librarian said, Mr. Hawthorne, I don't know who you saw upstairs, but Reverend Harris died 2 weeks ago. And Hawthorne was convinced that he saw the ghost of Reverend Harris, and that Reverend Harris was just trying to say goodbye to him. Out of that incident, Hawthorne actually wrote a short story. So my point about that is, kiddos, you're here in Salem with all these amazing stories and imaginative thoughts, and I would love for something creative to come out of your visit to Salem. A poem, a haiku, a short story, anything. Write a postcard, tell somebody anything about Salem, and then you're like Hawthorne. But guess what? Don't be too much like Hawthorne, because he actually hated Salem. Aghast. Hawthorne I know, I ask myself that every day. How did Hawthorne hate Salem? Why was he a hater? At another stop, I'm going to... Goodness! What? Amazing. How many years did Nathaniel Hawthorne live in the house? Come on, math majors, you're going to need the data. 1 year. They're so smart. Welcome to my tour with smart people. Okay, Nathaniel Hawthorne lived here for 1 year. In 1847, something happened to Nathaniel Hawthorne. What happened to him? Someone always says he died, and I always set them up for that. And also the TV's on. But, however, Nathaniel Hawthorne would not have had a TV. You did? Okay. Nathaniel Hawthorne did not die. Who said he died? Good guess, and someone always guesses it. You know, after all, it is the spooky story. He did not die in 1847. Nathaniel Hawthorne became a famous author in 1847 and couldn't wait to get out of Salem. So now that he was a famous author, he was like, bye Salem, I'm out. He didn't like Salem, and the reason he didn't like Salem is because his great-great-great-grandfather was involved in the witch trials. And Hawthorne felt bad about that. He was like, the witch trials were a terrible, horrible time in history, and I don't want to be part of it. But his great-great-great-grandfather was the witch trials judge. And has anybody ever heard of somebody with a bad nickname? People are making fun of them. We would never do that, but you've heard of that? Okay. The nickname for Nathaniel Hawthorne's great-great-great-grandfather was the hanging judge. This is not a good nickname. So Hawthorne actually felt bad about that. He was just like, the hanging judge, I don't want to be part of that. It kind of freaked him out. He could not wait to get out of Salem. He couldn't wait to leave Salem behind. He moved to Concord, Massachusetts, and he's buried in Concord. Otherwise, I'd take you to Hawthorne's grave. What? I'd have to put you guys on a bus. Okay? Ain't got time for that. So here's what. Actually, we should probably just pass it around. This is what Hamilton Hall is coming around. This is what Hamilton Hall looks like now. It's very, very fancy on the inside. While we're passing around the picture of the inside of Hamilton Hall, I am going to tell you the story of the cursed corner. You guys ready? Okay. Across the street from Hamilton Hall, there's a park. Can you guys see on the corner across the street that there's nothing there but a park, okay? I call that the cursed corner. Here's the story. When they decided to build Hamilton Hall, everybody on Chestnut Street was really happy. They were like, yay, we're gonna get to have amazing parties. I can't wait. Except that across the street there was a church. Now, the minister of the church was saying, I don't want these wild parties across the street from my church. That might mean people will stay up till midnight and then they'll be late for church the next day. So the minister from the church across the street said, do you have to put it right across the street from my church? I don't want it there. Well, if the minister put a curse on Hamilton Hall, I guess it bounced off. Because what happened to the church across the street? It had a tall, pointy steeple that pointed up into the sky, and that steeple got hit by lightning, and the church burned all the way down to the ground. Now, nobody was in the church, and it happened overnight. What did they do next? They built another church. They said, we shall rebuild. And they put another church on that site. What happened to that church? It burned all the way down to the ground in a terrible fire. So they said, enough. that is the cursed corner. There's definitely something wrong with the energy on that spot. And they say we are putting, not only are we not putting a church there, we're not ever going to put anything there anymore. So they kept it as a park from that time forward. Now, if you have your fancy wedding up in Hamilton Hall, and now Hamilton Hall is really used as a wedding place, they have parties and concerts and dance lessons, all different kinds of things up there. But if you have your fancy wedding up in Hamilton Hall, you could use the park for your reception, pictures. You could all hang out and go across the street and dance the night away. Okay? So they built it as a memorial hall for Alexander Hamilton, who was the Secretary of the Treasury under George Washington, and he died in his infamous duel. Okay, my friends? And he died in 1805. So when they were building the hall, they were like, what should we call it? They got news that poor old Alexander Hamilton did something really dumb. He was in a duel, and he died. So they said, we shall name it after him. Alexander Hamilton actually did visit Salem, but he never saw the hall, unless he came as a ghost, because he was dead before it got finished. Okay, my friend? Speaking of that, in 1855, we were able to cram all the high school students in Salem into this little bitty building, because our population was so much smaller. So we had all our high school kids here and all our elementary and middle school kids over there, and they built the church. They built, for me, it's like a religion. They built the two schools right in front of, what do you see behind? The cemetery! Why would they do that? Well, I will tell you. Inside these buildings, there's no gym. Okay, who has a gym in their school? Do you have a gym? Yeah, see, there's some mark. It says no dogs. Service dogs are cordially welcome. Service dogs are cordially welcome. So that is fine. It's different when it's a service animal. Friends, we are about to go see two Kerwins for the price of one. Let's go. I mean, we're not going to see them. That would be an extra charge. It's like a whale watch. It's like a whale watch. It's a ghost watch. All right, ghost watch. I want to. We do. Okay. This is a family marker. So normally we think of a grave and a person and a grave and a person and a grave and a person, right? This is a family marker, which means there are a whole bunch of Kerwins buried in the ground beneath our feet. Okay? So no matter where you're standing around this monument, you are probably standing on the final resting place of one of the Kerwins. It's hard to know because here's the gross part. You ready? Every Kerwin family member at this site was actually dug up from the family farm. They dug them all up and they brought them here to the Broad Street Cemetery and they reburied them here at the Broad Street Cemetery. So needless to say, it got a little bit confusing about who's who and what's what. These people were originally buried back home on their farm. And they went to sell the farm and kind of split it up because there were no big farms in Salem anymore. And they said, wait, don't sell that part. That's where a whole bunch of people are buried. So they got the shovels, they went out and they dug up everything that they could possibly find deep beneath the ground. And they brought all the Kerwin remains and they stuck them here at the Broad Street Cemetery. But what we're sure about is that Jonathan Kerwin, witch trials judge, and George Kerwin, the evil sheriff, are among us right now, here at the Broad Street Cemetery. I'm going to talk to you about George Kerwin. George Kerwin, the evil sheriff. At the beginning of the witch trials, when the children first started going crazy, when the kids pointed out somebody as a witch, it was George Kerwin who went to their house, banged on their door, and arrested them for the high crime of witchcraft. Now at first, everybody thought George Kerwin was awesome. They were like, George Kerwin is saving this town from evil witchcraft. So great, go get him, George Kerwin. But what happened was a couple of months later, he had arrested so many people that we started having doubts. We were like, maybe George Kerwin isn't doing the right thing. Maybe he's arresting innocent people. Maybe he's out of control. But kids, what do you think would happen if you said anything bad out loud about George Kerwin? What would you do? What do you think he would do to you to get back at you? What would he do? He would arrest you and take you to jail, exactly. So on the inside, a lot of people are thinking, George Kerwin is terrible. But on the outside, we're saying, George Kerwin is awesome, okay? People were afraid to talk. They didn't want to speak up and say anything because they were terrified. So, with the Kerwins arresting everybody and the kids rolling around on the ground screaming, how are our terrible witch trials ever going to end? Well, luckily, there was a man named Governor William Phipps, and Governor William Phipps was in charge of all of the colonies. So Governor William Phipps questioned the Kerwins, and when he did, they accused his wife of witchcraft, because that's exactly how they operated. And when Governor Phipps heard that his lovely wife, Lady Phipps, was accused of being a witch, he just laughed and he shut down our witch trials. So what the girls who were accusing people of witchcraft probably didn't know is that Governor Phipps had actually hired all of these judges, and now that they called his wife a witch, he said, "You're all fired. I'm closing down the court in Salem." But as a Puritan man, and he still believed in witches, he said, "Why don't you have your witch trial down in Boston with my judges?" And so nobody in Salem was actually willing to take him up on it, and that's really how our witch trials ended. But they say that George Kerwin still haunts the house at 148 Washington Street, which is the Merchant Hotel. Has anyone ever seen the Merchant Hotel? Staying at the Merchant Hotel? 148 Washington Street, guys. You should walk by. It's very spooky. Next time, definitely stay at the Merchant Hotel. It's haunted by the ghost of George Kerwin. Well, we are very glad that the witch trials is over, and I'm going to give the kids a takeaway. The takeaway that I'm going to give you kids is that the witch trials was based on stuff that isn't real. It was based on people getting...
Boo. Spooky.
Me too.
Petrol. Breakfast. Little town of Rockport. Let's check out their Harvest Fest.
Is there anything specific?
You gonna pray while you're doing that? You okay?
And they're closed.